9 o'clock. We'll call the Tuesday, May 8th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Roll call will show that all commissioners are present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item is a public access forum. Is there anyone here to speak to the public access forum on items that are not on today's agenda? Please approach the microphone, give your name and address. You have about 3 to 4 minutes. You may appear here once a month.
Danita Trout, 1202 6th Avenue Southeast, St. Stephen. Good morning, and thank you, Stearns County Board of Commissioners, for allowing me to speak today. We are here regarding a letter we received on April 12, 2018 from Patrick Moen, Assistant County Attorney, regarding uncertified septic system. Pursuant to a deed filed on May 29, 2014, it was a warranty deed from Kevin and Deborah Trout to Kenneth and Danita Trout, property at 908 6th Avenue Southeast in St. Stephen. We have contacted the county commissioners regarding this case as it was presented years ago. And he's been working on the situation and has not been getting anywhere with environmental services, and he's recommended we appear before the county board. This issue was addressed a couple years ago. We were told it was taken care of. We did receive a letter ago, but it was discarded as we understood the situation was resolved. At that time, we didn't think we would need it. The person at the attorney's office at that time said it was an exception as it was like a divorce. As I have found in the current ordinance per the county board meeting on September 6, 2016, 9.2.3 transfer B, the compliance portion of the certificate of compliance need not be completed if the sale or transfer involves, number 8, when title to real property is held jointly by husband and wife and through a divorce decree, where one of said parties is removed from the title with the other party retaining ownership. We have retained ownership. Trout Valley Farms was my husband and his brothers who originally purchased the farm in 1982 from Walter and Joan Trout. Then there was a filing dated May 18, 1993, where Trout Valley Farm Partnership was split, and then there was a quit claim deed to Kenneth Trout and Kevin Trout brothers. So our name has been on it since 1982. May 14th, or May of 2014, the partnership was once again split. The warranty deed filed May 29th, 2014 from my brother and sister-in-law, Kevin and Deborah Trout, selling their share to myself and my husband, Ken Trout, and we retain our shares as well as purchasing Kevin and Debbie's share. Therefore, we haven't just acquired the property. It hasn't been transferred us. We've always been on it since 1982. In some capacity, and we ask that you please help us with the situation, and thank you for your consideration and help in this matter.
Thank you. You mentioned a letter. When was that letter that you said you no longer have?
He discarded it. He thought it was all taken care of.
That would be from what year approximately?
Well, we did the partnership split in 2014, so I don't know how soon afterwards that was done.
Was that letter from which department? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that is wishing to speak at the open access forum? Anyone else to speak at public access? Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close public access forum and go to the consent agenda. Before we do that, Commissioner Merrick, you had something you would like to
Yes, we have. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item H3 is a review of shoreline projects. We had a discussion, or I had brought up the issue when we have a drainage or an erosion issue with a major shoreline alteration, we should at least look for input from Stearns County Soil and Water. And I see that's an agenda item H3. I think it'd be appropriate to have that discussion when we have the public hearing, and I believe that's F1, a public hearing on ordinance 439. One of the things in there is shoreline ordinance, and I've talked with environmental services and they're aware of that. So it's just a sequence of events. I believe it's good to have that discussion either along with or before we have that discussion. So if we could move that.
Number 3 as being the first item on environmental services.
Right, so H3
Okay.
would be right before F1.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any, everybody okay with that? Do that first. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
I'll move the change in the agenda.
I'll second if it needs it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Then consent agenda, board, what are your wishes?
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll second. Does that include the ones in our blue packet?
Right.
And the ones in the blue packet have to do with an appointment to the North Fork Crow River Watershed District.
Well, it would be B8 and B9.
And-
The other one is a part of the Human Services consent, and so this is the regular consent, I believe, isn't it?
Regular consent, there's a third one that's, will be at Human Services, that's C2.
Does Human Services have a separate consent today? Right, yeah,
Yes,
they have a
yeah.
separate under
Mhm.
C. So my motion would be for B8 and B9 as a part of
Okay.
the regular
All
consent.
right. And B8 is for tax abatement, and B9 is for appointment to the Watershed District.
Right.
It's been moved and it was seconded, I believe, right?
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are up to item 3. We're at this point already, we're going to recess the regular meeting and conduct the Human Services Board meeting, and we have Melissa Huberty here for this. And this one is where that other consent item will be added.
Right.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Melissa Huberty. I'm the Human Services Administrator, and in addition to the one item you mentioned, I have one other consent item. It's C1 on page 64. The Mental Health Task Force of the Human Services Advisory Committee has recommended that Stearns County recognize May as Mental Health Month, and this is in keeping with similar national and statewide efforts, and attached is the proclamation. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
Board consent items, or any- what are the wishes of the Human Services
I'll move
consent
that
item?
consent, those two, the proclamation issue and the item in our packet, C2, which is the tobacco license application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Short meeting today. We'll now close the Human Services Board meeting and reconvene the regular county board meeting, and we have Public Works and Jody Tykus here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My first item is related to a bid award. I'm asking the board to approve awarding the bids for SP 073-070-016 and 017. This is a highway safety improvement project, ground in wet reflective edge line pavement markings. We opened bids on April 26th, and the low bidder was Traffic Marking Service, Inc., with a bid of $208,068.24. This project will be funded 90% with Highway Safety Improvement Program funding, and then 10% out of our state aid and county levy dollars. So I'm asking the board to approve that award of that contract.
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Lee?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
My next item is I'm asking the board to approve advertising for bids for CP 074-018-030. These are County Road 74 improvements at the new Tech High School entrance along County Road 74. It'll include a right turn lane and a bypass lane and a box culvert extension. I'm asking the board to approve a bid opening date of June 7th, 2018. Transportation sales tax dollars will be used to fund this particular project.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll
Second?
second. I have a question.
Moved and seconded. Commissioner Merrick?
So this entry would be off of 74, not of 33rd. So there'd be two entries into that new high school?
Correct.
Both off of 30th?
It's my understanding that this entrance along 74 will primarily be for buses and teachers, and the main student and parent access will be from 33rd Street South.
Yeah, and I don't have any issues with it, but just an awareness for the residences. There's a number of residences along 74 in that area. Somehow they need to be informed, or I'm not sure if that's the county's responsibility or the city's, but somehow there should be an awareness for those residents.
Yes.
Of the increased traffic and so forth.
And they should be aware of it. I know there was extensive discussion when they were talking about
Okay.
putting that entrance there.
All right.
I think the school has done a lot of
Okay,
that
sure.
discussion.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I just have two quick miscellaneous items. A reminder that tonight is our road program public informational meeting at 7 o'clock, and that's at our office in Waite Park. And then a week from today, we have our road tour, and it starts at 8 o'clock. We will be departing the highway department shortly thereafter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Okay, now we are up to public hearing, item E. Public hearing concerning breakfast on the farm. We have Shelley Benson here.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director. The first item, as Commissioner Mergen had just stated, is the public hearing for the large gathering license for breakfast on the farm. Every year that location changes, which is the reason why we have to hold the public hearing. They are exempt from the fee process that we have determined is of value to the county, but they still do require a public hearing. So that's the place we're at the moment. We've received no letters in regard to that.
Okay, any questions or anything before we open the public hearing? Okay, we will have, public hearing is now open for breakfast on the farm. Is there anyone here to speak to, for or against? Anyone here to speak on this issue? Third call, anyone here to speak on this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Okay, Commissioners?
I will move approval, and I'll ask Shelley for an overview of this project, location, time, so forth.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Shelley?
This is for the breakfast on the farm will be at the Vote Dairy in Getty Township. We don't give out the address specifically. We do in the public notice. They are going to Sauk Center Fairgrounds, I believe, for their parking. And so when people want to go to this event, they will park and go from there. They have buses that will take them to the farm so that we don't have any issues on the county road. But that will be on June, I want to say June 2nd.
Second.
Yeah, and I didn't list that in the item, I'm sorry, June 2nd. So we do hope that a lot of people participate. It's been an event that has grown every year, and they do a really good job of handling all of the facilities and making sure everyone has got good transportation in and out.
And I believe it runs from 7:30 to 12:30.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
correct.
And so individuals that are interested go to the fairgrounds, and there's a shuttle service going out to the farm. back
Yep,
and forth
Sauk Center Fairgrounds.
During that time frame. Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioners? Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we are going to go to item H3, which is the discussion related to this Soil and Water Conservation District review of the shoreline alteration applications.
And
Yeah, and
Angie is here to go through
If I
that.
could, Mr. Chair, there was a couple of meetings ago where we had discussion on a major shoreline alteration, and it was, I'm not sure if it was that particular one, but other times where it's been an erosion and drainage issue and not aesthetics, or vice versa. And so we had a discussion about that, and I see that was an item later on our agenda. And in discussion with Environmental Services yesterday, I think the authorization is already there, but I'd like for Environmental Services to kind of key this up So if it needs to be a part of this amended ordinance, fine, and if it's already done, then we're okay too. So can you overview that for us?
Good morning, Commissioners. Angie Berg. As Commissioner Merrick stated, it was brought up during issues by commissioners during a recent major shoreline alteration conditional use permit. And I think what happened is after the shoreline review panel was eliminated, we just kind of stopped sending project reviews as needed to soil and water. Not on purpose, only because they weren't included in a formal process. And we do have the enabling ordinance language in already. It's actually part of the state rule that as needed, if Shelley and I or staff determine that we need their assistance to review an application, it won't be every application, it'll be the more complicated ones. We'll go ahead and coordinate that review, site visit, and then provide that information to both the Planning Commission and the County Board.
So you already have the authorization that was talked about a couple of meetings ago.
That's correct, Commissioner
Okay.
Merrick. Mhm.
And I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that, and that's a part of the record here. So thank you.
Mr. Persky?
I would just have a concern being on the planning commission. We know that you're prudent in doing that so that we don't have one come to the planning board and then we say, we're going to send it back to the commission, so, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, Shelley and I did meet with Dennis Fuchs and Greg Berg at the Soil and Water Conservation District, and this isn't going to be a precise science on when and if, but their review isn't going to be related to aesthetics.
Right.
It's going to be related to erosion, stormwater control, engineering practices,
Right.
and so yes, we're going to kind of maybe fumble through this for just a little while until we understand exactly what and how you'd like to see. But we will, perhaps you and I can even just talk on some of these too, since you're
Absolutely.
the liaison. And so, yes, we will do that.
Right.
Thank you. We don't need anything. This is just a discussion, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, Commissioner Merrick, you're okay with
No,
that?
I'm fine, yeah.
Okay. We will then move to item F, which is a public hearing to consider approval of land use and zoning ordinance number 439 amendments. Shelley?
I'll have Angie Berg go through this with you.
As noted in the agenda item, these are follow-up discussion items that really started back last fall when we had a joint meeting of the County Board and the Planning Commission to discuss the various shoreline alteration applications coming in front of you. So what we did is we worked with the Board, Planning Commission, worked with the Board, with the Planning Commission again at a few different meetings, and basically came up with a few tweaks to the ordinance, nothing that's very substantial, but I can explain what they are. Secondly, we also added a few other miscellaneous changes related to ag-oriented businesses, pool covers, how we define recreational vehicles, etc. So I'm not going to focus in on those unless there's specific questions. Mr. Chair, should we just go through each page and
yes,
see if
I
there's
think you
any
should.
question? Okay, so packet page 86 is the first page of the changes. Are there any questions related to those items? Packet page 87, line number 18, although subtle, I think this change warrants discussion, and I think we have some members of the public here today to talk about that as well. Currently outside of shoreland in Stearns County, the ordinance does not require a permit for a structure 150 square feet or less. You're still required to meet setbacks, you still have to follow the guidelines, but you don't need a permit outside of shoreland. And so Commissioner Mergen had brought this up a while back to me, and we said we would wait until we had an ordinance change, which we do. And so this change would extend a no permit requirement to inside shoreline as well. So that's what line number 18 does.
And to make a point here, these are buildings without a foundation, where there's no digging involved, anything like that. There's no sewer hookup, anything, right?
That's correct. The ordinance does specify the, I just missed it, related to
Without a foundation.
foundation. There it is,
Line
yes.
16.
Thank you.
Commissioner Notch.
But then if you go up to line 6, you don't have any changes there, but, so those accessory buildings can't be more than 5% of the total lot, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Knotts, so inside shoreland,
Mm-hmm.
you're limited to how the amount of acres you have. And so if you jump back to packet page 86, if you have up to a half acre, you can have up to 900 square foot of accessory structure. But those smaller 150 square foot accessory structures do not count towards that 900.
Even under item B on page 87?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and so just think about that. You know, typically you have a cabin or your home, a attached garage, then they'll want an accessory structure, a shed, and then they would be allowed to have other, we call them water-oriented accessory structures, but it means the same thing. So that's line 18. Unless there's any other questions, we can.
My understanding then is that they would be on blocks or on skids so that they would be movable. Is that correct?
Commissioner Mergen, Commissioner Persky, yes, and in fact, the way that the ordinance is written currently, we would have to tweak it if you're wanting to not require a permit only for those that don't have a foundation. Well, typically, a 150 square foot structure doesn't have a foundation, but we've seen some. And line item 16 only talks about that those without a foundation don't count in the calculation or in the number. It doesn't say that you don't need a permit for one. So unless the board would say that 150 square foot or less and without a foundation doesn't need a permit, I would add that in here to make that more clear. I don't think it's written that way right now.
Good.
Okay?
I would prefer that, yeah.
Moving on to packet page 88, we have some changes related to the solar energy applications. This is needed for Department of Energy in our assessor's office. Packet page 89 clarifies recreational vehicle standards. These are not new standards. We're basically moving them around from different parts of the ordinance to one section. We've been working with the attorney's office on that for the last year. And then we'll move to packet page 91. This is where our shoreland alteration changes start. So line number 2, our topographic alterations involving movement of 10 cubic yards or less, not including sand blankets. So you don't need a permit if you're moving 10 cubic yards or less of material in shoreland, but that excludes sand blankets. You always need a permit for a sand blanket. So we're clarifying that. And then we have on packet page 91 again, line item 15, 16, 17. Here's where the Planning Commission is recommending that sand blankets that are too big, too wide, or too long, that they prefer those to be heard by the Board of Adjustment since it's a dimensional standard. Typically, dimensional standards, setbacks, height, etc., go to the Board of Adjustment and not through a conditional use permit process. So their recommendation is that those become a variance. Line item 34 and 35 is basically a change not allowing sand blankets on steep slopes, which is a needed change, I believe, because there's a lot of creative sand blankets on steep slopes and the sand doesn't stay in place. It goes into the lake. And the last page, packet page 92, relates to rock riprap, line number 4 through 8. And we found out that these standards are actually in the DNR model shoreline ordinance. We just didn't have them in our ordinance. And so we really didn't have to work too hard on creating a rock riprap standard because we needed to adopt this anyway. So that's all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mayor.
I have a question. If you have a situation, a hypothetical, where you have a building, a small building, let's say 10 by 10 or something like that, and it's on a foundation and it's close to the shoreline, and you take that building and you move it further away from the shoreline, does that require some type of a permit?
Currently, today, yes, it would. Under the change, it would not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I got one more.
Mr. Persky?
Yeah, back to the building, the structure. What about the setbacks off the water and then off of the neighbor's property? What would those setbacks be?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, the setback requirements in some townships are a little bit different, so I'm going to give you the county's requirement is 10 feet from a property line, and on a natural environment lake, it's 20 feet from the shoreline. On a general development or recreational development lake, it's 10 feet.
Okay. I'm just thinking that, that can cause issues with neighbors as far as, having that on the property line and their vision and what they think is aesthetically pleasing.
And I would add just a few other things that we don't permit under the county ordinance that would also include some shoreland improvements would be stairways, lifts, and landings. So a stairway going down to your lake, and then you have a little deck or a landing, and then you keep going down your shore. That does not require a permit. It never has. You just have to follow the standards. The other one are swimming pools. We don't require permits for swimming pools, but we have standards you have to meet. Those are the two most common uses that we currently don't require permits for. This would fall in that same category.
Any other questions? We ready to open the public hearing? The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here to speak on this issue? Please give your name and address.
Don Peach, Painesville, Minnesota. Some of it's interpretation, I believe, but our people with item D are led to believe that if they're getting a shed 150 feet or less without a foundation, that it does not count, it does not require a permit, and we've got a couple of situations right now where we issued an accessory building permit in the fall of 2012, and it's questionable as to whether it's in compliance with the ordinance, especially I. And we went over and talked to him last weekend, and he says, I've got 2 other sheds there that are 150 feet less. The county doesn't require me to have a permit. I do not believe that is accurate. We did report a complaint, but that's what we're having. And when I see this, are we putting ourselves into a situation where anything that's 150 or less without a foundation, we can put it on our lot as long as we make setbacks and do not exceed the 25% pervious surface. It's ugly when you come into a beautiful lot that was taken care of and there's 7 or 8 cars that are not operable, and we realize that that sunsetted a few years back, but now all of a sudden, instead of having 2 sheds, we've got 4 sheds, because the interpretation was the county did not require us to get a permit, and the county handles the permitting in the shoreline on Lake Coronas. So our concern is, it appears that we're saying there's not going to be any limit to the number of sheds 150 or less. And I want to make sure that, or I'd like to be sure that I, which addresses they have to somewhat match up with the principal structure, stays in existence, because without that, we can have cardboard shacks, plasterboard, basically anything without that. And I realize the county is doing the permitting in that first 1,000 feet, but it seems for some reason or other, they get to us before they come to you. Thank you for your time. Those are the main issues, I guess, that we can keep enforcement on them. Thank you.
Angie, could you address that a little bit? Can the township be more restrictive than what the county is?
Mr. Chair, so Don Peach and I have talked about this property for a few weeks, and so the answer is the township can be more restrictive, but they can't issue permits in shoreland. They're not allowed to by state rule. But one thing that I did mention to Don is number I, related to the color material. The township could be more restrictive. I mean, they could change up that language, and then if someone isn't matching color or material, then they would first need to obtain something from the township. Variance, CUP. This number I, which isn't part of the proposed change really today, but we can certainly talk about it, line item number 33, the exterior color design and or materials used to
What
read
page are you on?
and. packet page 87.
Okay.
It used to read color, design, and material had to all match. So you had redwood siding on your house, you had to have redwood siding on your accessory structure. Well, then we had a violation years ago on Lake Coronis. The ordinance ended up changing to be or. So you could have a red siding on your shed, and if it's steel and your house is steel brown siding, well, that matches the intent of the ordinance as or. So if townships don't like the or, I think that they need to be different and change their ordinance, and I can certainly work with Painesville to do that if they would desire.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any problems with enforcement? We're kind of getting into your area if you're issuing a permit and then we come along and say, we're not going to buy into that. We do not sign off on permits anymore. The county issues them. We take care of all the permitting outside the 1,000 feet. And in 2007, we said we're counting all accessory buildings towards the square footage and towards the number that you can have. And that's worked well for us. But right now, it gets somewhat confusing because we're trying to get away from dual permitting, and we're not sure where our jurisdiction ends. I'm happy to hear that we can go inside and enforce some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on this issue? Anyone?
I got a question on the topic.
Okay. Mr. Persky.
So with the, is there a limit on the number of sheds that they can have on the structure? So with this, the small sheds of 150 square feet, does it say one, or is it open-ended?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, the way the ordinance is currently written, and the change only relates to the need for a permit. Okay, so if you could have 4 or 5 or 10 150 square foot or less sheds on your property, as long as you are meeting all the setbacks and you're meeting all of the other requirements here, and you're not exceeding your 25% lot coverage. So on small lake lots, at some point you're going to butt up to that 25% lot coverage. On larger lake lots, it could take you a while. Mm-hmm. So again, all we're looking at today, unless we would want to do something different if you don't like what we currently have, is only relating to the need for a permit. So even today, someone could have 4 or 10 smaller accessory structures.
How is that number of buildings addressed? We just went through this out at the chain of lakes where they're not allowed to have any extra buildings. That's why they're building bigger houses. But how does that work out there that they're not allowed to?
I guess I would have to understand the situation, which...
This was the one out on, what lake was it? Just by the golf course, by Rich Spring Golf Course out there.
Oh, Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
My understanding from attending one of those meetings, it was a covenant issue, or their residential
So the Lake
private
Association
covenants.
has that covenant?
It's a residential development, is what I heard him say at the meeting.
Okay.
We don't have, the limits that we have for accessory structures are what you see on page 86 and 87.
Okay. So that is a local issue then that is more restrictive than what the county, so there's an option there to go to that route.
Correct, and I believe it's a private covenant
Okay.
on file.
Commissioner Notch.
I guess that's where I was still kind of getting to line item 6 in B. So where it says maximum residential accessory building area shall be 5% of the total lot area. So if you're in a 0 to 0.49 lot size, that's 900 square feet, correct?
Correct.
So then if you divided the 150 into that 900, you can only have 6 of those buildings, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, if you look at the first part, except as provided in.
Yep.
And so 6.21C is the except provided for section. So it means that if section C is less restrictive, you get to be less restrictive. So what I'm saying is that you can have a 30 by 30 pole shed.
Mm-hmm.
You can have your house, you can have your attached garage, and you can have as many 150 square foot less structures as you'd like, provided you meet all the requirements, setbacks, impervious lot coverage. That's currently the ordinance requirement today. The only thing that we're looking at today is a permit, no permit requirement. Again, unless the commissioners don't like what we currently have, then that would be something you'd want us to probably go back and work on.
But again, the local government could have covenants or whatever ordinances that would be more restrictive than what the county sets.
Correct. It's possible.
Mr. Merrick?
So if I'm understanding you, you said that the only issue before us today on this issue is permit, no permit.
In Shoreland.
I'd like for you to overview this permit, no permit. Who gets a permit when and how does that process work?
Okay, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Merrick, outside of Shoreland, a permit is required for any structure that is over 150 square feet.
And who issues it?
The township or the county, it depends on our memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
And then inside of Shoreland currently today, any structure of any size needs a construction site permit.
From who?
From Stearns County, because we are the only
Okay.
entity allowed to issue permits in Shoreland.
Thank you.
So well, let's clarify this, any structure of any size.
Correct.
So inside, currently, somebody gets an outhouse, decorative one, as you see once in a while with the moon on and so on, 5 feet by 5 feet. They would have to get a permit for that if they're inside Shoreland, correct?
Commissioner Morgan, yes, that's the way the ordinance is currently written.
Okay.
If
Then-
it's truly an outhouse, though, we do treat it as a septic system, just so you all know.
But I
It can't
mean,
be 10 feet.
just a little decorative
Sure.
building. Okay, they would need to get a permit. Permit is how much?
A construction site permit for this size structure would be $250.
$250. Then they also need to have their septic certified, correct?
Correct.
It's that
State.
5 by 5 outhouse. Meaning that they need to have it pumped, $150. Meaning that they then have to have it certified, $150 or more.
Correct.
So to put this 5 by 5 outhouse, decorative outhouse there, they're talking $500 about.
Yes, Commissioner Mergen, that could be the
Okay.
case. It could be that or more, depending on the services that they acquire. Yes.
Okay. So let's go to some other things. Swimming pool. They get one of these swimming pools you see, maybe even over 150 square feet. Set it out in the backyard there. No permit required, right?
Commissioner Morgan, the in-ground swimming pools don't require a permit because they are required to have fencing or an automatic pool cover. A lot of times what we'll see with the above-ground pools is they'll add their own decking to suffice the safety mechanism. So decking around then, in order for the kids to jump in, that requires a permit.
But the pool itself would not,
Correct.
no matter of the size.
That's right.
Okay. Third item, what about, I've seen some pretty elaborate deer hunting stands. What about them? Do they need a permit?
If they're used for deer hunting, our typical policy has been, we do not require permits for a deer stand. We have
Okay.
not went there, no.
What about dog kennels? Do they require a permit?
They do not.
And what's more environmentally friendly, that decorative outhouse or the dog kennel? Okay, what I'm pointing here is, this thing is totally inconsistent. The rule is, it's picking and choosing. It's totally inconsistent. So, either we eliminate it, or we make all of these require the same thing. Any, Commissioner Nash?
So just going back to the point then, 150 square foot building portable would require a permit in Shoreline.
Currently.
Currently correct.
Thank you. I think we've kind of got a little off track, but we are still in the middle of the public hearing. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this issue? Anyone else that wishes to speak on this issue? Third call. Anyone else wishing to speak on this issue? Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, any discussion? Commissioner Persky?
Yeah, Commissioner Mergen, you brought up a good question about the dog kennels. Within the shoreland, are there different setbacks for a dog kennel? So for example, if you have a slab, how close to the water could that slab be?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, we don't currently even, the words dog kennel are in our ordinance as it relates to a private or commercial dog kennel, but someone having a slab by the lake and putting a chain link fence and a dog house against it, we do not, A, require a permit for that if it's being used for a dog kennel, and B, do not have a setback requirement for that. It's just not addressed.
But isn't there a certain amount of setback you have for impervious surface, though, up to the shoreline? For example, if a person wants just a parking pad for an automobile or for a truck or something like that?
Correct, Commissioner Persky. Eventually you would get up to your 25% lot coverage, and if you do pavers, you do a concrete slab, you do a patio, you're going to be potentially going over your 25%, even though many of those things listed don't require a permit. So there's a lot of responsibility the landowner has to take when they're doing projects in shoreline, especially on small lots, because they could be coming into an issue then the next time they apply for a permit, and now they've added too much impervious lot coverage, and we need to work with them on that.
Anyone else? Any discussion? Commissioner Merrill.
Yeah, with some of the discussion that's brought up here today, there's a lot of verbiage here, a lot of things to look at. Some of the issues that have been brought up by Commissioner Mergen or along the dais here, would it be appropriate to bring some of those back to the Planning Commission for discussion? I mean, this is a living, breathing document. I mean, it's amended many times over the years, so I'm not sure that we can address all the issues that came up here today, but if we adopt what's here, that's gone through a couple of work sessions, I think, through the Planning Commission and the County Board. So I lean towards being comfortable with what's here, but I would also think that some of the other issues that are brought up need some discussion further. And I don't know if I'm on the right track or not. I don't know what my colleagues feel here.
Well, I'm in favor of adopting what's here. It's just because you're eliminating these inconsistencies and some of the things that, in my mind, that are not.
So
Get chlorinated water in a pool, and that's not required.
So you're comfortable with following the recommendation?
I am.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move that we approve the recommendation as it's come forward from the Planning Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Well, the only further discussion, I guess, I would like follow-up at the Planning Commission level, then coming back to the board on the various issues that have come up here. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Persky?
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. You know, it's not a perfect document, it's a work in progress, but we do have to have something that people need to work on today if they want to come in and do some development, so I'm comfortable with it as well.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner, just so everyone kind of understands where we would be at, we're probably looking at maybe 6 months or so in terms of coming back with something, just due to our workload. The Planning Commission's agendas are very full, but we heard you, and we will come back with something.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
We need our consent.
We are solid waste disposal. Is that where we're
It
at?
should be our
G1?
consent agenda.
Okay. There are 2 items on the consent agenda. Board, what are your wishes?
I'll move the consent items.
Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we're up to item H.
The next item.
H1.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is to consider amending a subdivision agreement for the plat of Stonegate on the Lake. A request has been submitted to amend the subdivision agreement for Stonegate on the Lake. It's located in Paynesville Township, and the request was approved by the County Board on July 11th, 2017. And the request is to amend item number 7, which relates to no permits pursuant to the land use and zoning ordinance shall be issued until the road, stormwater facilities, shared septic systems, and water lines are installed in compliance with this agreement. As noted in the agenda item, the developer is asking the board to revise that. He would like to build 2 homes on the property first before the road is completed. He would still first have the stormwater and the septic system actually is partially installed already. He would have those infrastructure improvements done. He would like to build 2 spec homes first and then repave the road. Again, if the board does support this amendment, the revised stormwater plan still does need to be reviewed and approved, so we would delay recording of that document until we have that complete, which should be in a week or 2. So this did not go to the Planning Commission. There are certain amendments to subdivision agreements like this that are very technical in nature that we can bring to the board. If the board's not comfortable with that and you want to send it back to the Planning Commission, that is your right as well.
Commissioner Merrick.
I talked to Environmental Services yesterday about this issue as well. I'd like for you to tell the board what type of guarantee is out there that this road will be put in if this amendment is granted.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Merrick, we do hold a letter of credit that has been reviewed and approved by our attorney's office, and that it includes the septic, the water lines, and the road, and the stormwater. And so in the event that the developer would fail to complete the road, we do have a financial guarantee to complete that.
So there's a guarantee in place that that will happen?
That's correct.
By what, by when?
The proposal is October 15th, 2018.
Okay, that, by that time, the road would have to be installed.
And if it isn't, then the county would hire contractors to do it.
And the new property owners would be aware of that.
Right.
Okay, I'll move approval of the request.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I just have one question. Is this, you're coordinating here between the recorder's office and yourself with this, right? Is there coordination here? And this is something that a lot of times in the past didn't happen.
Commissioner Mergen, all plats and related documents go through a series of review with the county auditor, treasurer to make sure taxes are paid, the county assessor to make sure people understand what the implications of development will do to their taxes. They work with us, they work with county highway, they work with parks, almost every department, including the recorder's office.
This has always happened?
Correct.
Okay.
On documents that are related to subdivision,
Okay. So
like
I'm talking
like a
about-
plat,
Okay.
not necessarily an individual lot being recorded. So there is a difference in the
Okay.
type of document based on the type of subdivision occurring.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, Commissioner?
Yeah, just a quick question. Did it state on which lot 1 and 2 of which block? Or maybe that's immaterial, but
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, it may not have stated, but it is on the lakeshore lots,
okay.
which would be block 2.
Okay. Because I noticed there was 2 lot 1 and 2s, but it didn't say which.
Good question.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Notch, are you okay?
Yes. Thanks.
Seeing no further discussion, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item 2, H2.
The next item on your agenda is to consider the Wakefield Township plat of Zumwald Lake Estates. This plat is 5 residential lots and 2 outlots submitted by Rod and Lois Gherkin, A+ Homes, and the property is approximately 50 acres located along the north of Zumwald Lake, Wakefield Township. Wakefield Township approved the preliminary plat in December and the final plat in April. The Planning Commission held their hearing on February 15, 2018, with many conditions listed on packet page 112 through 114, and all of the requirements have been met. And I would add that in this situation as well, we have a financial guarantee that the county is holding for the stormwater improvements. The township is holding a financial guarantee for the road. This will be a road installed and maintained, a road installed by the developer, then maintained by the township. And so that we have a 3-part agreement with the township, county, and the developer to ensure those things are complete.
Commissioners, your wishes.
I'll move approval.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I believe that's all of the items that we have.
We have already discussed item 3, so we are up to building facilities. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
And we have Dan Tideman here. morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Louise Feldkamp. I'm the Manager of Building Facilities, and I'm here with Dan Tideman from GLT Architects today, requesting the approval to advertise for bids on the expansion of the service center.
Okay, I'll just go through this
Could
briefly.
you pull the mic closer, Dan, please?
Oh, I am sorry. The project scope has remained exactly the same as it was as we've presented in the past as far as the addition to the service center, roughly 23,000 square feet per floor for 2 floors. We have very minimal site parking additions. We are going through the Excel Energy Design Assistance Program, which we did the first time when we did the original service center. A couple other features of that building: it will also utilize a geothermal heating and cooling system as the original building also uses. This particular addition will also have, and we are going to price this as a separate piece, a rooftop solar array for photovoltaic electrical generation, and that'll be on the rooftop. Very low profile system up there. The bidding procedures will be such that Stearns County, as it was in the original service center building, will be acting as the construction manager. We will be soliciting 45 different bid packages for the amount of work. Of those 45 bid packages, actually, the county will be self-performing about 12 of those. Again, that's very similar to what was done in the original building. Of course, there will be bid bonds required on all bidders, and performance bonds will be required on any contract bids that are in excess of $75,000. And again, that is exactly the same as we did the first time around. The schedule is such that we will take bids, if you so approve this, we will take bids on June 7th, with then the board approval of those bids on June, I believe it's June 26th. And then construction starts on the addition on July 16th of this year, with substantial completion of the addition scheduled for June 7th of next year, of 2019. As soon as we finish the addition, then there's remodeling that then has to occur in the existing portion of the service center. That would start July 1st of next year, and that remodeling would be complete by the end of next year. So that kind of outlines the schedule of the entire portion of that, or that project. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So what we're looking for is authorization to proceed with obtaining the bids.
Do we have such a motion?
I'll move approval of the recommended action.
I'll second it with a question.
It's moved and seconded. Commissioner Notch.
You're just curious, is that pretty aggressive timetable for opening bids and starting?
It's not too bad. I mean, is it aggressive? Yes. Is it way too short? No. I think it's reasonable, but we also don't want it to drag on either.
Right.
And so there will be potentially a certain amount of overlap between the completion of the addition and the remodeling, because they kind of go hand in hand. So the completion of the addition and the start of the remodeling are going to kind of be a little fuzzy in terms of those dates. But I think it's a reasonable timeline.
Mr. Lenzmeyer.
Is there a relationship between timelines, long or short, and a length of a timeline resulting in optimum cost? I would imagine a very short timeline raises cost, and going in the other direction, I haven't thought about the impact there, but is there a relationship that you know of?
There can be, yes. Some projects will use a liquidated damages component that says you have to be done by a certain date And if you don't meet those dates, then there's a penalty clause. We don't see those used very often simply because they add so much cost to the cost of the contract. Because we don't have a liquidated damages clause in there, which I think is the right thing to do, I don't think we're seeing any risk of them adding costs because of the schedule. The timing, the one timing issue we are concerned about is the rising price of materials. Materials and labor are going up, but materials in particular are going up. Steel and wood are going up significantly, steel in particular. So we don't want to wait either in terms of stretching that out because those prices continue to escalate. So overall, I think that while there is a relationship, I think the schedule we have laid out doesn't really cause any undue cost to the county as far as that goes.
It doesn't look.
Can the addition be served by existing mechanicals, or will there need to be a separate mechanical system for the addition?
We are doing a completely independent mechanical system for the addition. It's the exact same kind of system, but it is independent of the existing system. And a couple reasons. First of all, the original system is sized for the building that was built, but we also dedicated site space for that additional geothermal field, knowing that at some point in the future Stearns County would add to the building. And so the site is laid out for that, but the system itself was built originally for that building that was built. Now we are doing a similar type system that will be just for the addition. We're going to leave the existing system exactly as it is, functioning exactly as it is.
Commissioner Merrick?
I have a two-part question. One of them, some of this work is expected to be done internally. Can you give me give the board a brief overview of that? And then there's a domino effect where there's going to be some remodeling done here. And so I'd like a brief overview of both of those items between you and administration.
Okay, first of all, Okay. First of all, the majority of the work done by Stearns County is typically in the mechanical and electrical parts. You have some very skilled staff that are capable of doing those portions of the work and did them in the past on the original building, and it was very successful, and it certainly did save Stearns County a significant amount of money for that portion. The remaining other bid packages are relatively minor. It's primarily mechanical, electrical. Jumping to the remodeling that would happen in the admin building, we will have to wait until the service center work is complete before we can do anything in here, although we will be I assume we'll be doing more detailing in terms of the planning for the remodeling. We have the schematic plan for what we're doing in this building, but we can't really start disrupting offices.
So, and that would start after December 31 of 2019?
Correct.
Sometime after that?
Yes.
And then the final question I have, do we have adequate staff to take care of the work to be done internally?
Yes, we do. We are currently making sure that all our projects in progress, we're trying to get them all completed before groundbreaking, so that everybody will be available for the
So we don't need additional staff?
Not at the moment.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we already had a motion and second, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave.
Thank you very much.
We are up to item J, issues by commissioners. We will start with Commissioner Lenzmeyer. Do you have anything, Commissioner Lenzmeyer?
I am concluding my recent experiment to determine whether or not I'm actually indispensable, and I'm glad to report the results. I'm indeed dispensable. Good job, Doug.
Thank you. Commissioner Notch.
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Persky.
Thank you, Commissioner Linsemeyer, for your approval. I just have one item, and that's just a fishing opener this weekend. We've got lakes in Stearns County, waters in Stearns County, and it can be a dangerous time. People should make sure they wear the life jackets, beware of the cold water, and be friendly at the access to us, and be a little bit patient, and good luck fishing.
Commissioner Merrick.
I have nothing. Thank you.
All right.
Well, along with that, though, we should also recognize Mother's Day, correct?
And mothers should be patient as well.
We just got Joe in trouble.
Mike, did you have anything?
No, sir.
Randy, do you have anything?
Just mention that the photometry flight has been completed, so hopefully this summer we'll have that information for everybody to use.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Seeing nothing, this meeting is adjourned.